So good morning and welcome to our next Special Education Leaders Update meeting. We are ready to jump right in and get going. Brian, let me just see if there's anything on your mind before we get started.
Nope, we're all set, Russell.
All right, perfect. So in preparation for today's meeting, we and my members of my team, we meet regularly and we go through what items we want to bring to you. And for this meeting today, I was chock full of ideas. Doesn't, wind me up, and I just want to spew out more things for you to know about and to bring to these discussions. And my team really very appropriately held me back. And they said, we are in the middle of a surge. School and district leaders are stretched to the limit. We need to just bring to today's meeting the things that are very time sensitive, the things that we said we would bring and talk about, like the eligibility portion of our referral evaluation and eligibility tool. But let's leave everything else until later to really allow people to focus and to just not overburden people during a very burdensome time right now. So huge credit to my team. If you are appreciative of what we don't do today, it's not because of me, it's because of the smart people I surround myself with. And like an IEP meeting, let me tell you about the options that were considered for today, but the team, my leadership team, dissuaded me from bringing to you today. So the first is an updated FAQ. And so we will probably by our next meeting in February have an updated FAQ for you to share. But we did hold ourselves back from releasing that in January. Also gives us a little more time to develop it a little bit further and hopefully streamline it, frankly. The other thing that they very, very much held me back from are the special ed determinations. And so we just felt like January right now, in the midst of everything that you're doing, the determinations are not the most important thing. We want to do them, we need to do them. And so they will also be coming later this winter, but we did hold ourselves back. So those were the options that were considered but rejected for today's meeting. We'll be putting that onto a form and sending it to you. But more importantly, we'll be bringing you the information in subsequent meetings instead of trying to pack it all in today. So today, I think is going to be short, maybe some time for questions. Let me tell you about questions. You'll notice that we're in a webinar format now instead of in the meeting format of Zoom. So you are all attendees, and my DESE leadership team were the panelists. And Nina will come on as always to answer questions, and we'll also hear from some others as we go along here today. But your questions need to go into the Q&A button on your screen instead of the chat. And so please bring your questions. We will definitely have time for answering questions in today's meeting. So just put them in the Q&A box instead of in the chat box. And that will be a great way for us to just know what's on your mind and answer any questions that you came to today's meeting with. So with that in mind, I just want to start with some brief updates for you. And the first one actually comes to us from Head Start. And so we know that some of your staff provide support to children who are in Head Start or in one way or another go on site in Head Start facilities. And our colleagues at DPH reached out to us and asked, who oversee the Head Start program, asked if we could just make sure that you know and that you're aware that there is a federal Head Start vaccine and mask requirement that's in place. So, not a surprise for universal masking required for individuals 2 years and up. So obviously our staff members. And then staff, volunteers, and contractors who have contact with or provide direct services to children have to be fully vaccinated by the end of this month, by January 31st. And if a staff member can get an exemption, they have to undergo weekly testing for COVID. And we also included the link to where you can get more information. So we just want to make sure that you're aware of this, that you have this information, and certainly, probably something to follow up on more locally if this is an issue or something that you need to explore further. So we hope this is useful and timely. We wanted to pass it along to you right now, just because, again, we're trying to bring you the things that are most time sensitive, and this one being a deadline of this month really fit the bill for our discussion today. The other thing that I wanted to do just in the way of updates for you is just to remind you about our special education updates. Like I said at the beginning of this school year, we want to focus these meetings more in general than we did in the past anyway. We don't want to bring to you such a potpourri of topics. We've revived the special ed updates now for a while, and it's really where we are in a kind of short format, describing to you some of the most pertinent things that you need to know about in a very timely way. So as always, you can click on that link, and when we show the slides, you'll just be able to click on that link to get to the special ed updates. I'm going to stop sharing the way that I am right now, and then now just share the updates themselves, which I had nicely queued up. Here they are. And so let's just take a look real quick. Brian, let me just pause and make sure you're seeing my my screen with the special ed updates on it.
We are seeing your screen with the updates.
Excellent. Thanks, Brian. So when you click on that link, you go to this page that shows you the special ed updates, and the first button that you'll see will allow you to join the mailing list so that you get them regularly. If you're not getting them and you want to receive them, please click on that link. It takes you here. Sorry, it takes you here. Really easy to fill out. And keep in mind, we want a very inclusive approach here for anyone interested in special education, and our DESE's news about it. But a lot of the information is really for special ed. I wanted to, because there's a lot in here, there's enough in here that we thought for today's meeting, just giving you a little bit more updates about, things to be looking for, any kind of deadlines that you need to meet, would just be a good use of your time today, because, you're busy, and we didn't want to add more information, but we wanted to make sure that we reviewed what we have already released, just in case you missed anything, and just in case you want to just hear our voiceover of what we think is most pertinent. Here's the good news. First item on the agenda is today's meeting. If you made it to today's meeting, you can cross it off your to-do list. You got that one done. But Nina, we just recently had the first of our information sessions related to positions in special education. And I wonder if you could just give an update to the group on that and maybe some next steps.
Sure, absolutely. So on January 12th, the department collaborated with Mass Hire, and also Carla Gents from ACE, Joanne Haley Sullivan from MOEC, and Elizabeth Becker from MAPS. And we held a special education job information session for the Metro North Boston area. And it was really interesting because the foundation is definitely there. Each group gave a presentation and focused on different areas of special education, shared videos, pictures, success stories, very heartwarming, and I think really inspiring for people who haven't yet entered the field of special education. So we are meeting as a group again early next week to identify the areas of the state who have the largest vacancies, because we know that schools are, for various different reasons, struggling hiring staff in all different roles. So we are focusing on special education and trying to get some people your way. So stay tuned. We will be posting them in the commissioner's update. So if you have people that family, friends, people that who are looking for jobs, feel free to send them the link. They do have to be signed up with Mass Hire, which is JobQuest. I'm sorry, Mass Hire. There's a posting there where it's an easy free link, and then the Mass Hire staff actually work with them and try to help find them the correct job, whatever setting it is, whatever position it is. And the other thing we're really focusing on is people who are trying to change their careers because of the pandemic. A lot of people have reevaluated what they're doing with their life and how they're working. So special education definitely is a, good feeling type of job. There's lots of success stories and hard work, but lots of success stories. So we are working with people in Mass Hire to explain about how to apply for a waiver in different ways, that there are opportunities to become licensed in special education if you aren't currently. So more to come on that. So stay tuned. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nina. And I think it, very reflective of our team's efforts to bring in an emphasis on HR, just knowing about the staffing shortages right now. And so it's work that, we hadn't historically done in the past, but we feel like it's our obligation to be doing more of this type of take on these types of efforts for you. And so appreciative of the team up, like Nina said, with the other professional associations who also, this is new work for all of us to be developing these information sessions And so we look forward to telling you more about this in the future, as well as other efforts that we have underway to focus on recruitment and retention of special education staff. Just gonna skip down a little bit further. Some of this, is, doesn't require a lot of explanation or voiceover right now, such as just making sure that you use older funds before accessing new grant awards. And some of it we've talked about it in previous meetings, such as the updated placement consent form. So just a reminder that we do have the updated consent form and that it's available through the link that's there. But Jamie, next up, just wanted to talk about two topics related to financial matters, just starting first with the deadline of January 14th for the self-assessment about the districts that have received resolution funds. So keeping in mind, this is that smaller number of districts in the state. Jamie, take it away.
So for districts that are have received equitable services resolution funds this year, if you have not submitted your self-assessment, we would appreciate if you could get that in as soon as possible. We're going to start looking at those in the next week. Also, if you have any questions on how to expend the funds or need any help, we're happy to help you with that as well. Our contact information is on the newsletter so that you can reach us by email if you'd like. But we realize it's been a busy start of the new calendar year. So if you haven't been able to get it in, we'd appreciate it by the end of next week. And the second piece, Russell, you had mentioned the ARP IDEA. This is just another reminder. We're getting a lot of questions about this. So just remember that the ARP IDEA is also subject to equitable services proportionate share, just like your regular IDEA funds. And also CCEIS if your district is required to reserve the 15% because it's been identified with significant disproportionality. So just a little reminder there.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate that. And Jamie, you and I were talking before the meeting today, and we just wanted to remind everyone that if they need support with any of the financial aspects of special education, particularly maintenance of effort, for example, or any questions about how all of these, the overlapping funding sources that have come up now with ARP funds, plus your, the typical grants that you receive, that we want to know what those questions are. We want to help you with them. Jamie, anything else you want to add about that as well?
No, we're just getting a lot of questions. And so it's really helpful to know what the questions are so that we can help make sure that we're providing you with technical support. And if necessary, some webinars specifically on fiscal matters, if that's something that would be helpful. So.
Yeah, so even if you have anything on your mind today, don't hesitate to put it in the Q&A so that we can see what's on your mind related to fiscal matters as well.
Right. Great. And we know MOE is one of the concerns right now. So that's definitely on our agenda.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. So mainly the rest we have here are just some reminders. So we already talked at one of our last meetings about CPACs and the open meeting law. Our indicator work is underway. And I'm really excited about this opportunity for our special ed teachers and educators who teach K-12 science to have an opportunity to sign up to support our work and collaborate with us to develop instructional materials aligned to MCAS alt expectations. So this is for educators. There's a $750 stipend, and the deadline is coming up here towards the end of this month, January 28th. So as always, Deborah Hand does such amazing work related to MCAS alt and is ready to answer your questions. So don't hesitate to reach out to her if there's anything that you want to know about this, but we hope we'll get sort of a healthy response because we really want to hear directly from the voices of people doing this work to develop these instructional resources. Then just finally, a few other things. And again, we've mainly talked about this in the past. We covered the responsibilities for students who are in institutional settings and receiving special education services. So just a reminder, if you missed that, there's a link to the advisory that we released towards the end of the last calendar year. We also updated our child find resources. So this is information that you can provide directly to parents about child find. And we've had all of those resources translated. So if you're looking and needing any of our child find resources, just want to remind you of that link there. And the last thing that I have just briefly is that we have our family engagement network and professional development series. And so really good topics related to family engagement that our colleague Olga Lopez is running. And so encouraging you, if that's a topic you want to have some members of your staff go further in, I would love to have you join that network and professional development series when you're ready to do so. And then, finally, really finally, I think I said finally, but let's go for an encore, just a reminder that we released our guidance about sharing information, sharing student records with DCF social workers when a student is in the care and custody of DCF. So if that's something that you need any support with, don't hesitate to just start by taking a look at our guidance and then reaching out to us if you have any questions. So I hope that was helpful, because we did put a lot in there to make sure that you were able to see this month, and we just hope that it's useful to come back to it periodically, like we just did, to take a look and see what we've been sharing. Brian, can I just check which mode I'm in? Can you see me in presentation mode? I guess not. Let me just see if this does the trick. All right, Brian, am I in presentation mode now?
Yep, we can see the presentation.
Excellent. All right, so you're gonna have to bear with me because I'm going to toggle one more time, but then that's it. Our final topic for today is just that we are releasing, I'll use a progressive tense, we're releasing our eligibility guidance that is part of referral, evaluation, and eligibility, our REE guidance. This replaces ICERs, and I'm showing it to you today. We will send the link to you next week when it's fully live. The eligibility section obviously is closely linked with the flow chart, and we're all used to the flow chart for eligibility decisions. And so what we'll send to you next week is the updated flow chart. And I don't want to raise your blood pressure when I say updated. It is, there are minor changes to the flow chart as a result of what we put into this document here. So it's not a radical difference. When I show you what's in our guidance, I think it should just sort of, a lot of it is very familiar to you. And as always with having guidance like this, it's always the little details that matter. And even when I read it, there are a few things that I catch that I think, oh, that's a practice I could improve, or I could have improved. And so overall, I think when you see this, you're going to say, I know this, I'm solid with it. And I'm showing it to you today. When you get the live link next week matched with the flow chart, I hope it's just, we got this. We know how to do this. And this will just make our work better and stronger, because DESE has put this out not as a draft document, but as a live document that you can point your staff to, that you can work with families on. And it's important to know that when I show it to you, and I will in just a minute, that we've done it in this format, this online format, because it really gives us the opportunity to continue to adapt it a little bit, as our knowledge grows about how we recommend the process for referral, evaluation, and eligibility. We can adjust some of the language in here, and we'll make sure we tell you when we do. I don't anticipate big changes, but there will be some changes as we go along. It's a living document, and we want to continue to improve it. So as we make changes, we'll make sure you know about them. It's pretty easy to change them in here. At some point soon, though, in the not too distant future, we will say, it's sort of, hardened up enough that we do want to produce a PDF version of this and have it translated. And so that is coming, but right now it is live. The guidance is solid. You don't need to worry about the ground shifting radically underneath your feet, but more just small evolutions as we continue to get better at all of our practices related to referral, evaluation, and eligibility. So it just builds on what you've seen before. The format's going to look pretty familiar to you when you've seen the work that we've done with referral and evaluation. And so let me just share this with you now. Just have to grab the right screen. Do this one, and I just have to go to the next tab that I have queued up for you. So here it is, and bear with me, Brian, one more time. Can you see what I'm seeing?
We can see what you have up on the screen.
All right, sounds good. All right, so you're familiar with this because we've shown this to you in earlier meetings when we've covered referral and evaluation, but now we're going to talk about eligibility today. And you know that we just can go to the details and scroll down. And remember, we're seeing our overview, our referral section, our evaluation section, and then we come down here to eligibility. And so it launches over to eligibility. And again, our goal was to put it in like very clear terms, like a reminder for you on why we did this. These are all requirements that are in statute and regulation. So federal statute, state statute, regulation, federal regulation, state regulation. And we wanted to bring them to you in a user-friendly way, a way that your team can read this, other stakeholders can read this and just know what the requirements are related to referral, evaluation, and eligibility. You'll see that, as always, this is highly annotated and the links go right to the relevant regulation, the relevant statute, so that you know exactly where we're drawing from. We don't go out on a limb on our what we're putting in this document. It's really grounded in statute and regulation. But let's just take a look at what we have here. I think it's pretty straightforward. So we're just, we know that the requirements around eligibility are, does the student have one or more disability? And
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Of course.
Somebody's asking if you can enlarge your screen a little bit. I think because there's a column on the left. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
No problem at all. Appreciate the question. So we know that there are the key questions that come up through, again, these legal requirements about considerations of eligibility. We're used to these questions. They are not new to us in special education. And so, and again, we reference the flow chart here. And when you get this next week, we're going to match the flow chart very closely to everything that you see here. So nothing comes as a surprise. And I would just ask you again, to read through this. I think that a lot of these key decisions, these key steps that are here are really important, but just good reminders overall. And, I think it's something that we're all used to, of that linear approach that goes with the flow chart of the considerations for eligibility are just laid out in a very linear fashion. We ask one question that leads us to the next to determine if the student is eligibility. So, again, I'm not going to read it to you, but I'm hoping that I'm just giving you that great flavor for short sections that are just, again, really directly tied to the requirements related to eligibility. And so it references other parts of, it kind of ties back to how we've kind of built this whole idea of eligibility on a really solid evaluation process. So we definitely link back to that in this document a lot. And we hope that you'll find it useful. So, and like I mentioned, everywhere you read along, you're going to find the direct links without having to go to the end, right? They're kind of more footnoted than endnoted, where you can just find those links that you need to make sure that you're understanding the basis for where we got this from. And what I like about the links, frankly, is that it'll take you to the section of particularly a regulation, for example, that relates to whatever we've just explained above. You don't have to read through the whole regulation. It'll take you right to the section of the regulation that's relevant to whatever claim we've just made. So claims and evidence, that's how we roll, just like we do in our classrooms. So again, we're really used to asking this question: does the student have one or more disability? And we included the 10 disability categories with the 3 kind of additional sensory impairments for 13 total that are defined in our special education regulations. And again, we sort of start with the overall eligibility process and then always describe what then additional or different considerations need to be made at the 3-year reevaluation or any redetermination. And I really, for me, I like these reminders that at the reevaluation period, there can be some changes in the determination of which disability a student might have, particularly as a student approaches 9 years old and is already identified as having a developmental delay. We all know this, to make sure that we are updating appropriately to a different disability category after age 9. So getting ready for that during that year that includes the 9th birthday. Once they reach age 9, so through age 8. And then just overall that, circumstances can change relating to health, education, health, emotion, physical circumstances could lead to a change in determination. I appreciate the call out for giftedness. So we'll just have you take a look there. I think that's a question that probably comes up in your world from time to time. And so we just wanted to answer that question and provide, the relevant links to that where you can go to read more, so that we didn't have to, put all of the information into this document. You can, use the references to get more information if you need it. And again, as we go through that linear process, we know that the questions that we review, and notice how, at the beginning, it was really two questions, does the student have a disability? And then question 2 has some subcomponents to it. And we're all familiar with how they look on the flow chart of kind of multiple questions, but the way that it's, originally worded is sort of 2 questions that we break apart into 2A and 2B, so that there are 3 questions total. But the first one being about effective progress. And again, short section, so it won't take long for you to read through that. And we do, really put that emphasis on what, when we get to that question of effective progress, how much we rely on our educators who really know the frameworks and can really speak to whether the student is making effective progress. But as always, what you're going to see in this document is the decision is a team decision. And so while we rely on their knowledge, decisions about eligibility are very much a team decision. And I know that, we've all experienced when a student isn't eligible and is not found eligible, and they might not be found eligible because they don't have a disability. In this case, because they're not making effective progress. We just include this reminder of other supports that could be provided to the student, such as an accommodation plan or a 504 plan if the student is eligible, since 504 has its own eligibility process. And then, as always, just so you're kind of used to how this is set up, that then after we review eligibility requirements, we always then talk about what are the implications for a 3-year reevaluation and a redetermination of special education. So we're really coming down to the close to the end of this, but we know that the next question is the lack of progress a result of the student's disability? And I think this is really important right here, where we talk about reminding people to look back at the evaluation section around any additional factors that might sort of impact the evaluation process and therefore impact the eligibility process. And we just know that, from my personal experience, the over-identification of English learners with disabilities is something that, we particularly need to be mindful of and really working to overcome. So additional factors really need to be considered both in evaluation and in the eligibility process to make sure that we are really, taking that particular care and weighing and analyzing assessment data. So appreciate that call out and the importance of that. We know then the final question is, does the student require special education and or related services in order to make effective progress or access the general education curriculum? So we gave a lot of thought to this section in terms of how to describe the requirement for special ed services and related services, and just including that short definition of what is specially designed instruction and what are related services. I know we were talking about this recently about what, is this service a related service or not? So I actually appreciate that, the full list of related services, or not the full list, but, could include the related services that are listed here. I think it's a great starting point for understanding related services. And then we just know that, if, that sort of yes, no question that we have here around whether or not the student needs those special ed services or not, and the implications that it has for eligibility. So that's the whole section. And again, I hope that I've kept your blood pressure low when looking at that, because a lot of it should be very familiar, but there could be some things that are just useful for you and your team to go back over. Again, I hope you're seeing it's very approachable, very accessible. I hope, I think very readable. And so I hope that you'll be able to use it kind of widely with your teams in order to help them kind of make sense of the important requirements under eligibility. So that's it for today. We only just want to remind you that we have Upcoming meetings in February and March, easy to remember, both on the 11th, both at the same time, 11 to 12. And we're just glad to now just take your questions. And so, like I said, we'll let you go a little early today, but want to spend some time answering any questions that you might have.
Excellent.